Pessoal, bom dia a todos. É uma alegria ter vocês aqui hoje. Eu sei que a gente está com uma casa cheia. Temos também convidados aqui na sala, então agradecer imensamente a todo mundo que aceitou participar dessa mesa, né? I'm speaking in Portuguese, so sorry, so we switch to English. So today we have three special guests. So we start with Professor Valdemar. Then they will present himself, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so also with the Professor Felipe Reynoso, right? And Professor Posiris, which is online, right? So thank you so much. I'm Professor Luciana. This is the first event of our research group called Agri-Food and Franchise, which one I lead with Professor Pelma, which is also it's online. So we will also invite you for the next ones that we might have in this year, right? That's it. So I'll stop saying anything right now, and I will give the word to Professor Flavio, which gently received this task to be the moderator, right? So thank you, everyone, and have fun.
Thank you. Thank you, Luciana. Good morning, everyone, from the guys here and the lady here. And thank you very much indeed for the audience which is online with us to have this cool and nice conversation with such great professors and researchers. Professor Roselius, which will present herself just a few minutes later. Professor Reynoso, which is one of our guests and guys that we have the pleasure to get to know the past few years. And finally, Professor Valdemar.
Yes.
Birch.
Absolutely right.
Something like this.
Wow.
May I be your friend? Because Nordic can talk you just as Valdemar.
Yes.
Professor Roselius was introduced to me just a few minutes ago. We're best friends now. The talk today, guys and ladies, we'll discuss very interesting topics. Which deals with sensory marketing and the relationship of sensory marketing with marketing itself. So we are going to have these three presentations, and at the end we will have a global discussion on the relationship of these topics with marketing, with Professor Valdemar, which launched just a few months ago an important book called Human to Human Marketing with some fellow researchers, Marcos and Professor Copper too. And I will begin this discussion asking to Professor Roselius to present herself and give us a glimpse on her research. Professor Roselius, can you listen to us?
Yes, perfectly.
Thank you very much indeed for being with us. So be our guest and conduct your work for us. Thank you very much.
Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you, Luciana, for inviting me to this meeting. And also I'd like to thank Felipe for putting Luciana and I in contact and generating the possibility of being here today with you. Well, I am food engineer. I work for Embrapa for many years and on the sensory evaluation and consumer science area. And I've been working this topic since my PhD, when I work on the expectation and the effect of expectation, sensory perception, and everything. And packaging labels, all the information presented on packaging labels are very, the core of my my work, together with sensory as well. And well, I think this is, and I'm talking as I am a food engineer, so I have a very close connection to the food processing. So at Embrapa, I work together with some colleagues that develop new products, new processing methods, and we need the sensory evaluation and consumer studies to see if the products are okay, if consumers like what they produce. So there is a very close link between what I do in sensory and food processing, so in the food industry as well. So you also do at Embrapa, you have service, we do a project together with the industry, so to develop projects and to improve processing. And so basically it's what I've been doing the last 30 years. That's it. So it's a pleasure to be here with you, and it's a pity that I'm not able to be with you presently, but anyway, it'll be okay to talk to the small screen. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor, and you are invited to come here at ESPM anytime you want, so.
Okay, thank you.
Now I will pass the word to Professor Felipe Reynoso, who will give a glimpse of his research he's conducting. Please, Felipe. Yes.
Thank you, Flavio. Thank you, Luciana. Thank you, everybody here at ESPM Brazil. My name is Felipe Reynoso. I am Brazilian born, but at the moment I am an associate professor at Universidad de los Andes in Colombia. We have a very strong school of management in Bogota, Colombia. And I'm specialized in the interaction of the senses. I usually call it multisensory perception, and I apply my research in the context of sensory marketing. Also, I know Osiris because we are collaborating recently in different scientific studies, because there is a close connection between the universe of food sciences. I would say that the universe of food and sensory sciences kind of helped give birth to this more extended understanding of the potential of sensory sciences in the aspect of consumer behavior and consumer studies. And my passion also passes through sound. So I like to work a lot with sound and music. So I try to understand how can we rethink different experiences through the interaction of the five senses, and especially through the usage of music sound. So I hope we can have a fruitful discussion here, and thank you very much for the invitation for me.
Thank you, Felipe. And as we know, sensory marketing is stimuli to the individuals and to the persons, to the people. Hi, Monica. And we now have Professor Valdemar, which will take points on the human side of marketing. So sensory marketing is a human activity as well. How can you present yourself and give us a glimpse of your research?
Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody here. Actually, I have to thank Marcos for being here. He dragged me here. I am very happy being here because what you experience here is also for me an important field. When you go back in my history, I actually come from B2B, selling equipment, working on large projects. But in the meantime, we have discovered, due to digitalization, solution-oriented and innovation-driven changes, that the human-to-human interactions are clearly substituting the B2B or B2C reality. We have a new reality today, and this new reality needs new concepts and also needs new research results. And in the work we have recently published on the H2H marketing, there are, let's say, 5 words mentioned about sensory aspects, but it's not scientifically grounded. I mean, there are many academic work around it, but it's not integrated in the H2H concept. So I think there's a deficit, but on the other hand, there's a high need to put what is done on, let's say, product offering or packaging design into the conceptual framework. And I think that could be a good way of.
Thank you very much, Professor. Now we can open our discussion with the presentation of Professor Osiris. And please, Professor, feel free to present to us. We have 15 to 20 minutes or so. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's try again. I hope it works. Yes, are you seeing?
You're seeing the entire slide, please.
Yes, very good. I did it. I'm glad to. Well, I'm trying to be on time. Let's put my here and try to keep the 15-20 minutes maximum. Well, I'm talking about the sensory evaluation application in the food industry. So as I said, I am a food engineer, so I'm very much linked to the food industry as well. There is one phrase, one sentence made by Paul Rozin that I liked very much, and I decided to brought here in our context because I think it to be very valid. Paul Rozin, he says that food contributes to several functions in our lives in addition to providing the nutrients. They have emotional, social, symbolic values and are forms of aesthetic expression. So from this, you can start to imagine how important are the food to our lives and consequently to the sensory properties of those food. I like to contextualize my presentation, and you have to think that you are in a dynamic market with the globalization, the several roles of the woman in the society, the different niches of consumer, as well the number of the type of family that you have today, the very high worries about our health and everything related to nutrition for some people as well, and at the last one, but not the least one, but not the least important, is the media, or I would say the things that media does with us in our perception and in our evaluation of everything in life. So all the effect that we have from the media, many times of media. If you look at the consumer on the 21st century, we realize that we are more time pressed. You are more interested in convenience aspects of everything. You are very much interested in new media. You are better informed, many consumers, and more interested in health and nutrition, and also more interested in new and individual products. So this is also a consequence of the way that you are moving in this new century, new area, I would say. And when you think of our choices, so the consumer and the choice, there are several ways that consumer decides to choose something, especially food. Some are moved to reasons, or to find the emotion, or to find the price of the item, but many of them, they focus on the sensory properties. I mean, they focus on how good or how bad is the product that you allowed me to choose or not. When you think about the food and the consumer also, we have to think that people consider sensory perception as a dominant value or a limiting factor, tending to be less negotiable than other values that influence their food choice. So sensory properties are really very important. If it's not perceived as a positive in its appearance, smell, texture, or taste, flavor, I mean, if it is, I would say, disgust, it is unlikely to be eaten. It's unlikely to be chosen. So, except, of course, some special situations related to health problems or special diets. At the end of the day, consumers eat and drink what they like. So this is perfectly true. And if you move on to the sensory and consumer versus the food industry, and if you consider since the beginning of everything, I mean, from the fields when the food are planted, and after they are harvested and everything until they arrive in the industry and goes to our homes. Sensory evaluation has several important steps in all these processes. Important role in all this process. It's very easy to talk about product development and product reformulation versus sensory evaluation. So no one develop a problem if sensory aspects is not think about. Also, sensory is quite a good tool to explore the sensory characteristics and the influence and how those characteristics influence consumer like. So if you are able to identify what people like in such a product, it's much better to go towards that direction it's more probably that you will make consumers happier. Another utilization is on the competitor monitoring. So that's quite easy. So if I produce something, I want to know what my competitor is producing because I want to be better than he is or she is. In quality control, online quality control and quality control in the industry is quite common as well. The raw material specification. So if I'm going to do to work in an industry with very, very different ingredients, so if I have some procedures to classify my raw material, is much better, and it's much, I mean, at the end of the day, the probability of arrive in a good product is higher. To investigate and to explore the product shelf life as well. So for how long I can leave my product on the shelves, on the refrigerator, in the customer homes, and etc. And something that's very much related to what you do at ESPM is the identification of claims for advertising. So how the claims can talk to consumers and make them change their mind or not about that product. So when you focus in my first topic in the previous slides, namely the use of sensor evaluation, we come up with the food product development. So what's the role of consumer in this topic? Consumer has to be involved since the beginning, since the ideas. So when someone or some R&D section in an industry or in a research institute have some idea, the first thing to do is to talk to consumer, is to present the idea to consumer and to see how it will come back from consumer. After comes to the processing steps, to the quality control, and finally it goes to the consumer. And when arrived at the consumer, of course, you have to check if the products are performing well. So the consumer has a very important role. And if you think about food processing, food industry, food technology, so you see that many consumers perceive the use of food technologies as contradictory, to healthy, to nutritious, to tasty food. So some people are a bit reluctant to accept new food processing methods. And it's something quite concern for the industry because every day, or the big industries or the industries that have produced very different products, they look for new technologies to supply many different goals. So if a consumer doesn't approve that product produced by some technology, so it's going to be a problem. So it's crucial to take a consumer's views account during the first stages of the product development. I'm show here something that I'm sure you are aware. It happens in the UK. To me, it's quite strong because it was in the last year of my PhD when I was almost leaving the UK, and there was a big confusion, a big debate about the genetically modified products. So we found at the supermarket made from genetically modified tomatoes, and people normally, most of the people, they don't agree with this, so they made a lot of protest and everything because they were not aware of this. They didn't know what genetically modified means, the consequence for the health and everything. So it was, I remember very well, a big debate in the UK at that time. But it was not on the UK. If you look at the newspaper, you see something similar happening in France, in the United States as well, regarding other technologies. So in this case, about the nanotechnology application in the food processing. So consumers, they didn't know what it is and they reject the technology. So this is to demonstrate the importance of to having consumers since the beginning, the industry to have the consumers since the beginning of product development or of product reformulation. And what you notice, what you realize that the acceptance towards food technology, studies on determinants of acceptance of new technology occurred after a rejection of a particular application. I mean, after consumer had rejected the genetically modified products, they start to explain to them what it is and everything. So it was too late. So what will happen when the information becomes available to consumers? So it will favor the acceptance of the technology and consequently the acceptance of the product. What is the impact of the risk or the benefit information on consumer attitude? So if I tell consumer that the product was produced using such and such a technology, and because of this, it will have the amount of vitamin C improved, or to have more fiber, whatever is the consequences, the positive consequences, what is going to be the consequence for the consumer attitude and finally behavior towards that product? I'm sure that you'll be more positive, and you have several examples at Embrapa to demonstrate this position. I mean, And so to close this session, if you have an idea, if you move this idea to a food production, to a industry, to a factory, and you have the product, it has to be testing, it has to be evaluated. And the first thing is the sensory, because after the sensory, you are able to go to give to the market whatever you are developing. So when you think about sensory and product and industry, the first one thing that comes to my mind is the innovation. So the industry is look for innovation, and actually innovation drives the market. So every time you see new products being launched in the market, and many of them they go not well, they have to be removed from the market, but innovation drives the market. And if you focus only on the beverage sector, you see that by the end of the last century, in the 90s, we had very few products on the market. But on the 2000 year, the amount of available product was much higher. And if you focus on the 2020s and so on, you see many others. So you see many different products to demonstrate that innovation drives the market. But we have to keep in mind that the success of the product depends on consumer acceptance. So you have to understand the consumer perception. It's quite important to identify the determinants of the acceptance, because from this, you will be able to know the key factors on food product development, and the food acceptance is affected by several factors. So although you cannot identify those factors, you have to be aware that there are several factors that you have a role on on consumer acceptance, on consumer decision. And the perception, the acceptance, the consumer liking, the intention to purchase, and expected quality. So everything that is related to the consumer is like a three faces thing, because it depends on the food, it depends on the consumer, and depends on the context. If you focus on the food, you have the type of products, of course, with the sensory characteristics, the price, the packaging, the convenience. If you focus on the consumer, it's much broader. So you have to think about the age, gender, income, education, attitudes toward health, confidence in the food industry, and many aspects related to the consumer. If you focus on the context, you have to think on the family, the children, the urbanization, and the time of the day. So you have to think all together, the food, the consumer, and the context when we are evaluating products and we are trying to develop new products. So it's very important to investigate the consumer product perception. But how you can do this? So with the sensory evaluation and consumer science. So this is a very nice strategy to know our consumers. You have to be aware of the niches that you are going to focus. If they are older people, if you are children, if you are what niches the person belongs to direct and to drive the test that you are going to use. But the sensory evaluation is for sure a very important tool to get some information. And only I'm not going to give you a class on sensory evaluation, but only to talk in the same, information to present some information about the sensory evaluation regarding the definition of the sensory evaluation. If you go to any sensory book, the classical sensory book, you see that the sensory evaluation is a scientific discipline that uses the human sense, the vision, the taste, the smell, the touch, and the hearing. Even the hearing. Sometimes when my students say, the hearing teacher said, yes, try to eat an apple, and if you don't listen the sound of when you crush the apple, it's not going to be a good apple. And to meet the quality and acceptance of a food product. So to using our senses. This is a very valuable tool because we are talking about human senses. It's not about a chromatography, a spectrometer. So any appearance, any tool that you can repeat the analysis all night, and they say, okay, I do this. No, with us, with our senses, so we have to be more careful and follow some rules to develop a very nice sensory test. And briefly, there are basically two types of sensory panel. One on the left, that's select and trained people, that many industries have this kind of selected panel. You have this at Embrapa. You are working very hard on olive oil. So you have a recent approved panel by the COI. It's very, I would say, time consuming work. So to have these people to be selected and after to be trained. But they become very good to do some discriminative, to see, this sample is different of this one, and descriptive. This sample has such characteristics, and at the end of the day, you can evaluate the quality of the product. So on the other side, on the right side, you can have consumers, the consumer panel. Very valuable as well. So with the consumers, you need a much higher number of people to do this. And for consumers, you only want you ask how much they liked that and how they perceive such and such sensory characteristics, but they are not trained. There are some rules that you have to follow. Normally, they have to be users of the product. They have, or if it's something new, so at least the users of the product category. And from then, we expect some responses in terms of preferences, like in acceptance, intention to purchase, expect quality, and expect healthiness, for example. So there are two very different people to be using in the sensory evaluation area. When you move on to the consumers studies, that's much closer to what we do. This is why I'm very, very happy to be here, because I think you can have very nice connections. When you talk about consumer studies, it's much broader. So you have the psychology, you have nutrition, you have sensory, you have statistics. It's very important to use. You have physics, you have chemistry, and you have biochemistry. So everything together, if you think about everything together, for sure, you can plan a very nice consumer study, and you can get nice results that you can they are true, and you can have confidence on this. And how you do this? Again, I'm not going to show you some, because you know this more than I probably, and if not, you are very used to some of them. Yeah, I divide in two items, and maybe I can inspire some graduate and postgraduate students here that are listening to me, so they become more interested and can say, oh, I'm going to like to try such methodology. But among them, I brought here word association, free listening, focus group, that I suppose you are familiar with, and also conjoint analysis, check all that apply, that is named CATA, survival analysis, that's it's very good methodology to identify shelf life of products, and also how much you can add of some ingredient or remove some ingredients that consumer will be aware, but will accept it still. And rate all that apply. That's a variation of check all that apply, when you can ask consumer to graduate the intensity of the feeling that he or she is having as well. So those methodologies together, sometimes using the qualitative and goes to quantitative, and all the other way around, they are very useful, and all of them are very much used in my lab with my students. I'm sure that you are very familiar with conjoint analysis, but just to remember, so conjoint analysis and look at the effect of independent variables. For example, as I said at the beginning, I'm very much involved in label, packaging, and how those issues affect the consumer choices, consumer attitude, and so on. So if you manipulate those label and package, and they are called independent variables, and you can identify, you can explore, you can understand how the dependent variable that could be intention to purchase, preference, perceived quality, perceived healthiness, the consumer thought about that product. I mean, what are the effects of the independent variables on the dependent variable? So that's a quite useful tool. And it's very useful because if you think on the packages, can you imagine if the packages were like this? It would be a nightmare, yeah? So we, consumers, we use packages to be informed, to know the price, you are affected by the design of the packages and also the brand. And packages, so they generate expectation, and package also drive consumer choice. So it's quite important to investigate what's the point of that the packages have that will affect my consumers. And in this aspect, I'm going to comment with you a very recent study that you developed. It was made by one of my master students. That's a very nice application with the public policies, because you are aware of this high in sugar, alto em gordura, né? High in sugar, high in sodium, high in saturated fat that was regulated by Anvisa in 2022. And now many problems in the market, except the new products, but the products that were already in the market, they have to tell consumers about this. I mean, to tell consumers if they are high in some of the nutrients that, if it's in excess, is not good to our health. So because of this regulation of Anvisa, many industries had to work hard to reformulate their products and to get rid of this warning sign on the labels on the packaging. And we try to think, but what's the effect of the brand, the effect of the nutritional warnings, or the effect of the visual market claims, and also the textual marketing, nutritional marketing claims? How all those aspects that consumers are familiar with the product that they normally buy. So how those would affect the understanding or the perception of the nutritional warning, the what you call in Portuguese, the alertas, yeah? So we planned a study. We evaluated 4 different products. I'm going to focus that very quickly on the cookies here. So you manipulate all the things that I said before. So the brand, you use a familiar and unfamiliar brand. The visual marketing claim, so you use fonte of the vitaminas e minerais, search of vitamins and minerals as a visual, as a textual nutritional marketing claim. A visual marketing claim, we introduce the photo of a strawberry. And what else? In the nutritional warning, you can see in the two, the piraquê and treloso, the two in the bottle, they have the warning there. So our objective was to try to investigate how consumers react to this. Maybe if you have the piraquê, that's a very well-known brand in Rio, I don't know, in São Paulo, probably it is as well, compared to the Troloso that I've never heard about this. So maybe if I see the piraquê, I don't mind if it's high in sugar. I still, because it's piraquê, I still will consider it healthy. But maybe not. So how is the effect of a textual nutritional marketing claim? So because the industry loves that, to put high in vitamins, such that's good for our body. That's, you see, all those things to force, I'd say, to boost consumer to buy the product. So how all those things together would be thought in consumers' mind? And our dependent variable was how healthy do you think the product is? We try to simulate a real situation. So you present on 2 products at the same time, form a very well balanced design, follow all the protocols for the statistical requirements, and ask which one among those 2 that they saw on the video. It was our online study. Which one do you think is healthier? And consumer had to just choose the one that he considered was healthier. Remind that the information about the product varied among the 2 samples. And well, it was quite surprising, the results, because when you see the results of the conjoint analysis, the relative importance of the factor that we manipulated, and you see here the black, the darker color refers to the cookies, because we investigated chocolate flavored milk, granola, and iced tea, our very popular mate leão, or you see, it's not necessarily mate leão, but mate. And I'm going to focus only on the cookies, but the results were quite similar to the other products. So you see that the brand, yes, the brand had a effect when they, an importance when you were asking about how nutritious, how healthy you think this product is, and the warning didn't play very good well. That's very good for our recent policy that you Visa regulated. And you see the textual nutritional marketing claim, I would say, it was important, and it tried to decrease a bit the importance of the warning. And finally, when you look at the visual marketing claim, you see that it was not important at all. But if you, this is for the cookies. If you look at the granola, you see how important was the textual nutritional marketing claim for granola. I don't remember exactly now which was the claim that you put on the package, but you choose a claim that was taken from the real product. So it was not something that we created for our scientific mind, you see. So you see here how the other aspects of the factor can affect and can, I would say, decreased the effect of the warning. The warning had an effect, and show you in the next, the warning, when with the presence of the warning, the products, the granola, the cookies and everything, all the 4 products, they was thought of health, being thought of healthy, less healthy than the package that didn't have the warning. But it was very clear that the textual nutritional marketing played a role and decreased the effect of the nutritional warning. So this has a very important response to us. It means clearly the need of communication. So the need or the effect of the lack of communication to consumers. Because I remember at the beginning, more than 2 years ago, in 2020, when this legislation was regulated by Anvisa, I saw some advertising in the metro in Rio very few times, and after it disappeared. And when it was regulated in 2022, I don't see anything. Sometimes I receive some emails about this, and there are some scientific groups very much involved in this, but the population in general, they are not very much. Maybe they can see that the warning is there, but they don't know exactly what's the consequence of that. So because when you say you know that the high in sodium is quite good it's quite bad to our blood pressure, for example. But when you see that's high in sugar, you see, once some person said to me, "Oh, it's high in sugar, it should be better because it would be nicer, it's be sweeter." No, that's good. You see, so people don't know the relationship about being high in those nutrients. What are the consequences to the health? And so this is something that you have to communicate to consumers. So for the policies to be very well implemented, it lacks some communication aspects with the population. Well, and I'm getting to the final of my presentation. And also you have to think that although some classical methodology is very important, and you will always keep on using those methodologies as I mentioned before, but there are some new tools that you have to consider, and you are using already some of them. For example, the virtual reality, as Felipe mentioned, I met Felipe in a project together with the French group, and you developed some research there using virtual reality that was quite interesting, the results, and also artificial intelligence that's a tool that know where to come back. So it's there and you have to use it. And it's very useful in sensory evaluation. Immersive rooms also is an example of this. And studies using eye tracking. So the eye tracking experience is something also that's quite important, quite valuable to be incorporated into our methods of research. And because I said to you the beginning of I think the main tests of sensory evaluation, and just to put you on time of the sensory evaluation was started to be developed in the 40s, in the last century, in the 40s by the United States, because of the war, the Second World War. So they need to develop some food to be sent to the soldiers abroad, and they noticed that the food were quite good in terms of the nutritional aspects, but the soldiers didn't eat. Why? Because it was not good. And at that time, all the preference and acceptance test was developed, but on the more you move on 40 years after that, on the 80s, more or less, in the last century, it was the year of the descriptive test. So the United States and the UK as well, they proposed very different descriptive tests. But nowadays, and from the end of the 20th century and now, I think we move on to other type of tests. So the tests that you have to consider, as I said before, the context, the consumer, and everything that surrounds the food. So it's not the food itself presented to consumers with a coded number in a sensory booth, as it is here in the descriptive test, but in the way that consumers use normally the food and so on. I'm not saying that you have to abandon the classical and traditional tests, but you have to look forward and to look ahead and to implement and to bring to our, I would say, tests, these new technologies, these new tools as well. So summarizing, so we have basically the sensory aspects and the product issues, and you have in the sense of the sensory aspect, you have the appearance, the aroma, texture, and flavor. If you move to the product issues, you have the packaging, label, information, advertising, so all related to the food. And you can have on the one side the sensory evaluation and the other side the consumer studies. And if everything is playing together in a nice way, and the food match the consumer expectation, that's a good thing, because what they expected will be confirmed. So there's going to be confirmation, and consequently they will be satisfied. There will be satisfaction with the product, and consequently repeated use of the product. That's what every industry, every producer, every food producer wants. And I think now at this slide, I can bring us our relationship. I mean, our research studies. I think you can see some convergence that you can see together. Because if you think at any innovation or development or product reformulation, always has to be consumer oriented. So you have the marketing on one side that most of the time will say consumer wants this and that, and the people from the R&D and I that they have to work hard to please what the market suggests. You see, and there is this gap between the market and the R&D and I can be fully absorbed by the consumer studies, and you can get a very nice results. I think this is my final consideration that I'd like to be very clear in my presentation. Well, of course, I don't do anything on my own. I have a very good students that work with me, very good colleagues as well at Embrapa and at the University in Rio and many different other universities in Brazil and abroad. And that makes me feel very happy working on sensory evaluation and consumer science. And of course, all the agencies that give some money to us to work, yeah, it belongs with Embrapa that pays my salary and give all the infrastructure of research, and CNPq, CAPES, and FAPERJ, that they are the foundation at Rio de Janeiro. So, and thank you also to you for listening to me today, and I feel I am here to, if you have any question or comments, so you can discuss later on. I hope I don't occupy, oh my goodness me, a lot of time, I'm sorry. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Osiris. It was very delicious to listen to your presentation, very interesting topics. And do you feel, Philip, that Osiris' research is very connected with reality and day-to-day life, everyday life? So I would like to invite you to give us your presentation.
Yes, sure.
You compliment very well.
Thank you.
Será você compartilhar o material dessa pesquisa última que ela fez para a gente no chat?
Tá, professora Rosiris, a Luciana está pedindo para você compartilhar o artigo dessa última pesquisa no chat aqui do Zoom.
Ah, ok. No
Tá bom?
chat. Tá, ok. Fui já.
Você pode deixar de compartilhar o screen?
Eu já não deixei, não? Agora? Agora
Não.
foi?
Não.
Não!
Copy ali.
Tem uma barrinha que ela é metade
Zoom e
verde e
coloca.
metade.
Ah, é
metade
verdade,
vermelha.
deixei. Stop
Só
share,
clicar
pronto.
no P.
Opa, valeu.
Que vexame. Mas eu vou pôr aqui, então, esse...
Por favor, obrigada.
De nada, Luciana. Espero um dia a gente se encontrar pessoalmente aí em São Paulo. Uma das vezes que eu for, eu te aviso, se estiver disponível, a gente marca.
Ah, com certeza, faremos isso. Vai encontrar todo mundo aqui do nosso grupo. Muito bom. Todo mundo assinou a lista?
Yeah. So I think I won't take more than 10 minutes to present what I do. My idea was to do something very, say more, just want to tell you a bit what I do. And to begin with, I think it is very important to bring a bit what is sensory marketing. And sensory marketing, we can say that it's kind of a strategy that uses the senses, right, the human senses, to create or to rethink experiences in order to make them memorable concerning products, services, experiences, and brands. And not only to begin with the presentation, but actually as a general reflection, I think this human factor becomes crucial, and perhaps it sounds contradictory, but I think technology will play a very important role in present and in the future concerning humanizing marketing and branding. I hope this is the path that technology will gets us there. And indeed, my collaborations with Osiris, they pass through food, because I'm very specialized in sound and in music. So how can we use sound as an added value in customer experiences, in marketing, in branding strategies, and a large portion of my research has to do with food. So this is why we collaborate a lot with Osiris, and we like to frame our research as a methodology that we call sonic seasoning, which is kind of thinking as sound as an extra kind of seasoning in experiences. And to give you an example, so how do we do this? So let's think briefly of parameters that compose food, for example. Okay, so food, it's all about sweetness, bitterness, and those kind of basic taste and flavor parameters. They are those that create, right, kind of a food tasting experience. And in parallel, you have the universe of sound and music. So the parameters that musicians and music producers use to create music. So frequencies, different timbres of instruments, harmonies, consonances. So what we do in our research is first that we decompose these complex parameters from the universe of sound and food, let's say, and we create these behavioral tests where we test and we try to observe how most people tend to associate those parameters from the universe of sound with the parameters from the universe of flavors and taste. Okay, and by doing so, we are actually able to kind of translate, the universe of flavors into the universe of music. And we are able to compose, to create music and soundscapes that most people will associate with one specific flavor, for example, sweetness. And then when we combine, when people listen to these sounds that we create, sweet sounds, we give to people like different food samples. And when they're evaluating the food samples, we're actually able to modulate, this flavor perceptions and ratings concerning the food. And here are a few examples of the articles that we have developed. For example, we published an article a few years ago where people rated same chocolate as more creamy and more sweet when they were listening to this creamy sweet sound that we created based on the literature. And we also had a contrasting sound that actually made people modulated the perception on a contrary way. But of course, I guess you will agree with me that music is also a lot about emotions. So you can't create sound and music without considering the emotional effect that music will have on people. So we also try to understand how, for instance, a happy versus a sad song can also have this effect on the way people rate, for example, a chocolate, beer, or coffee. And of course, this is I would say this is very curious kind of research, very fun kind of research as well. So we try to move further and understand not only sweetness, but we also have created these bitter sounds, and we see that we're also able to modulate, the way people rate bitterness of different foods using these bitter sounds, and also again considering the emotional aspect. So on the one hand, you have these cross-model associations to these different parameters from the different senses, but also you have the emotional aspect that also has an effect on people's perceptions and potentially behaviors. And well, since this is such an interesting research for us and the different people that we work with, we also try to move further in terms of the complexity of the concept. So one thing is, okay, I can create sweet songs, I can create bitter songs, but what about more complex concepts, freshness? So we try to get, further in terms of the challenges that we approach within this kind of research. And we did a recent collaboration with a very large multinational Brazilian company of cosmetics, Boticário. It's a very known company of cosmetics in Brazil. And we were created, we did a very large research project where we were looking for to understand how we can create sounds that we would able to match and modulate the perception of freshness. So we moved from the universe of foods industry towards the universe of cosmetics. We're still talking about the chemosensory senses, but we see that there are different industries that are already getting curious about, working with sound, which is not perhaps the most direct sense that you would imagine when you are passing a cream or when you're using a fragrance, right? But we want to go further. We really want to understand more complex concepts. So recently, we also, as I told you before, I'm based in Colombia. Colombia is a country that has been struggling with violence, with kind of civil war. And for us, it's very important, to add value to the literature concerning peace, how people understand peace, what people think about peace, how can we, encourage peace. And so we are also now trying to understand, okay, what is the sound of peace? How can we decompose peace in more specific, descriptors, and how can you translate these descriptors into auditory descriptors, sound descriptors? We're getting there. This is kind of recent research, and perhaps the most recent research that we are working on is, this is not the sound of freshness. Sorry, there's a small mistake here. I will just correct here. So in the same page. It's nice to have a PowerPoint because you can. So actually, this is one of our most recent works that we haven't published it yet, but it's about the sound of sustainability. So this is a project that we're doing with colleagues from Portugal, colleagues from Colombia, and colleagues also from the Netherlands. And okay, so the idea is first first, this is a very hot topic, of course. Sustainability is a topic that it's very important for us at the moment. And first, the idea is to understand that sustainability has, different dimensions. So they have the ecological dimension, but you also have the social aspects of sustainability. So this is a very interesting work, but as you can see, I brought an example how do we, our methodology works. So first, we try to find these different descriptors from like a sensory, but also from an emotional aspect that most people would understand and would associate with sustainability. So you can see the sustainability descriptors there. So you see that there are some descriptors that are transversal towards the concept of sustainability, green, fresh, earthy, but also, safe, responsible, balanced. But then you have other descriptors that people associate more with the social aspect of sustainability, and are other descriptors that people will associate more towards this ecological, environmental system. And what we do, we're very good at translating these descriptors into sound descriptors that you can actually use to create sound, create music, create soundscapes. And we actually managed to create these sounds that most people would associate, with these specific sustainability descriptors. And of course, we are still in this stage of like, let's say, like a social psychological aspect of this specific work that we're doing. But now we want to take it to the more consumer aspect. We want to cross it with more consumer dependent variables, and we are still getting there. So this is a work in progress. And yeah, so I hope it's clear. I wanted to talk more about the future aspects of this kind of research, but maybe what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to leave Flavio these 2 last slides for our future outcomes discussion. Okay? Great. Thank you, guys. Very quick.
Thank you very much, Felipe, for your presentation. We're all seeing those topics. They are quite interesting because they discuss sensory stimuli and sensory aspects that's connected to our everyday life, and they are very curious, as you mentioned. But all this discussion that Professor Rosirius and you have taken with us so far have to do with the human aspects of individuals. So Professor Rosirius took the position of talking about product development, and you mentioned part of this product development on the side, on people will take contact with such products and developments. But this is quite useful for marketing proposals and marketing proposals for the individual. So I would like to invite Professor Valdemar to have this presentation with us. Feel free, Professor Valdemar, to take your time.
Okay. I'm very humbled to be here because what I learned now is, for me, very groundbreaking insight. I mean, I've heard about sound technology, but I never saw the complexity of the issue. I heard about food flavors, and I know about the various ways how you can use it, manipulate it, whatever, apply it. But I mean, what is done here seems to be on a, number one, very high global level. Number two, also very close to the subject that I have, where the elements of the human existence actually augmented by the various sensory elements. So I put the understanding of the concepts which are now developing out of the traditional marketing, the new marketing, together with the sensorial marketing concept. And I try to identify and connect the stuff that we know so far. So understanding the connection between the customers is very important. And the sensorial marketing on the one side and the human to human marketing on the other side could create a basis for something new, which really enlarges the emotional engagement. And that is, I think, what the customer wants, yeah, because any relation with a person, any relation with the product is elevated by emotional engagement. And if I have elements of sensory reality, this engagement is on a complete higher level. And putting that in perspective from a conceptual point of view, I think is very. The other aspect which I would like to mention here is the balancing of the sensory and emotional strategy for the consumer engagement. Because when we do this, we have effects on people. So our sensory marketing really triggers consumer behavior. And the way it triggers also the system of H2H marketing means that the outcome has to be really watched carefully because the emotional connections are meaningful. They have consequences and they lead to something else. And in anticipation of this new happening, you need to have a full understanding what the multisensory engagement actually brings to you, which needs lots of analysis, which needs lots of data, which is also an ethical issue. So you really have to see what is the outcome. So I think that is something what more researchers can work on, but also the business people have to be aware of that and have to know this could change the consequences of their activities. Another aspect from research I have done is clearly that enhancing brand loyalty through sensory marketing is a reality. We know that. The question is only how can we do it best? And that is quite a challenging task. The diagram what I'm using here is, so we have lots of consumer preferences, 1,000 and 1,000 and 1,000. They finally end up with various dimensions and you can test them, you can analyze them, you look at the data what you have, and then finally you come to the conclusion that you can actually boost loyalty and trust. And that is the ultimate currency in the world we are living now. And if we understand how it develops, we can influence as management, but we can be aware as customer. So it's both sides, and this is the task of the science to make that clear and make that transparent, that actually companies and customers and maybe also government institutions can have a look on that and control it. In addition of that, that impact of this multi-sensory marketing is enormous. So we need to really see what kind of visual, now I know also sensual and hear and sound tools, you have to look at that, all these various tactile and non-tactile elements, and you put that together, and the impact, of course, is enormous because it enhances consumer satisfaction or not. And that's what we would like to know before we go to the market. And that the customer wants to know to see by his own behavior. How is it triggered? Why do I behave like this? Where do I go to? So it's a quite challenging task. And for me, it opens up a new array of analysis. The conceptual part is already there, but actually the facts and figures and analysis is not there. And I assume you have some of the analysis, but you haven't connected it to the marketing concepts. Having the sounds and having the effects, it's fine, but then applying it as we have seen in the food part and seeing the results in the market is actually the big one. Well, finally, building brand loyalty through the sensorial marketing gives us the opportunity. Again, pretty complex process, but that process is also distinguishable, measurable, and leads to clearly enhanced perception. And with that enhanced perception, we can actually have a situation for the individual customer and also for the society as a whole, which brings us to a different higher level. And that is my personal purpose, probably also yours, and altogether, this could be a great thing. Finally, by integrating all this, as I said, I come from the B2B marketing and the brand strategy and the new concept of the H2H marketing. with the sensory analysis, we come up to something what I would call progressive marketing success. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Waldman, for putting your perspective on the integration of sensory marketing and H2H marketing, and how these concepts can connect together to produce some more advantage knowledge for the people. I was navigating the internet last week, just a brief story, and I came across a report in the Brazilian journal, which was discussing a recent psychology paper that was dealing with the aspect of why do we close our eyes when we kiss someone? Have you ever thought about how we and why we do this? Why do we close our eyes when we're kissing someone? And yeah, it's a very interesting topic. I was not interested in this. I was going just to navigate the internet. But then I came across research, so I was there. And the conclusion was that sensory stimuli are information. And when we have information, to have a better experience, the brain tells the individual, close your eyes to have a better experience, and get the most information you can have from the other senses. It's a day-to-day experience. I'm sure, not quite sure, but I expect all of you have experienced this, and perhaps you may have experienced the option of opening your eyes when you're kissing someone. It's very strange. Weird. Yeah. Very weird. Yeah. So, but all this conversation we're having here are discussing how scientific research, since the presentation of Professor Osiris, how the scientific research connects with everyday life, and how this everyday life can be better from the perspective of companies from satisfaction or loyalty, but how life can be conducted with more quality and satisfaction for the people and for the companies. Professor Osiris, could you, on your last slides, you mentioned the technology development and AI and some of this digital transformation we are experiencing today.
Yeah.
I would like to introduce this concept for our discussion. How do you, beginning with Professor Osiris, do you believe these improvements in technology can transform sensory market, and then with Professor Waldemar, is this a tool or a substitute for we as researchers and as marketing interested people?
Right, okay. I think it doesn't not going to replace sensory evaluation, the classical and the traditional one, because you still will need it. If you are in an industry, inside the industry, you need the sensory to do the quality control and the first stage of the product development. So sensory evaluation still will be there. I think that those new tools will complement and make easier some steps more quickly, you see, quicker than the regular one. And I'm not sure about how confident so far. Yeah, I think it will improve. But for example, with the eye tracking that I'm more familiar with, that's quite nice because you can see to where the person is looking at, and you can make decisions with more safer than if you don't have this tool. With the artificial intelligence, I think I'm more, because I'm not using, I tried to use some years ago, in the middle of the pandemic. I had some connections with some people from Europe, but well, the project didn't went away. So, but I think you have to be more careful when using artificial intelligence, because you have many different data, a lot of data, and you see that in the media, in the people not always say the truth, so that they're really feeling that they are thinking about whatever they are talking about. So it can be a problem if you fully trust in this information. I think you have to use it. I don't know, I would like to see the opinion of my colleagues, but I think you have to use it with care it's not the same with the virtual reality that I mean you are proposing some, you use this, now Philippe may explain as well, use this in our project with insects. So what to do, how people feel when they eat something that contains insect flour or insect itself. So, and you saw the difference if you change the context through virtual reality. So I think there are some tools that are quite nice to, I'm very in favor of them, actually.
Professor?
Thank you. I mean, I see it very similar, as we just heard. But I also know that the technology advancements are here. And of course, we have to be very careful. But actually, I want this involvement. You see, I have a smartwatch. And when I fall, the smartwatch detects that. And my doctor is informed. So
Confirm
that,
someone.
but I would like to have more. I would like to see also what's around me in smells.
You're very enthusiastic of this technology.
It's not a question of necessity, it is reality.
Mm.
But the question is how it is implemented. So I mean, if I have a smoke sensor in my smartwatch or a hydrogen oxygen sensor, which is very important. Remember when the miners go down the mine, they did the canary bird? Yeah? Why do we need a canary bird? We have the sensors here. And the critical part of that, from my perspective, is actually the analysis. Number one, you need to know where you are, you need to have the data for it, and then you analyze it. I mean, I follow, my watch tells me that I've been falling, but I'm not, yeah, because I just bumped on it. And so I have to verify. So the human physical interaction is necessary, which means our way of analyzing the reality is still better than the machine. But if we don't have the machine data, what can you do? And I had a situation where I fell in the mountains, 3 meters snow, couldn't get out, and no internet. All right, so I mean, if I came out finally, but if I would have not come out, would have been lost. So, but if the technology would be there, it would immediately initiate the helicopter to come by, yeah? So that kind of reality, I think, is the reality we are going through. And the future needs this, because the complexity of life is going on, and the understanding of the various activities need to be more clear. By making it more clear, in sense of what music is calming me down. I have a certain kind of set of music to bring me down, and it bring my heartbeat down by 15, 20 beats, because of the type of music that I'm listening to, or the smell, which enhances my present, the freshness. Yeah, the freshness brings a complete different thing. The best example what I found in smell generation was an Indian guy who did a fragrance of new rain on dry soil.
Ah, yeah, the smell of rain, yeah.
When you, the first time when you smell the raindrops, what a fantastic smell is that. So, number one, we need to understand what kind of smell it is. Number two, if we can replicate that, just imagine what that means for our well-being. So I see lots of.
At the end of the day, it's all about human experience.
Yes, it's the enhancement of human experience, or let's say augmentation, and of course the analysis of it, because it has many downsides, and if you use your algorithm to see what leads to the one side and what leads to the other side, you can, number one, prevent it, you can analyze it, prevent it, and make it accessible for many, many more people. We don't have that.
You can watch it.
Yeah, so basically, what is happening in my line of research is that technology is accelerating. So it's accelerating a lot. So, for example, now we do a lot of behavioral tests. So we measure the reaction of people to a certain stimuli, and now with the help of neuroscience and physiological measurements, we're getting a more accurate reading of the observations that we are creating. But I wanted to show you one example that I didn't say for the last slides, because we are talking, right, about experience augmentation and you know, and humanizing experiences, human to human. So one of the things that I think this kind of research is that we are developing from a multi-sensory perspective can allow is to create this more individual dialogue between brands and customers. Okay, for example, so this is the example that I showed you before, right? So we have all these parameters where we can compose, create music that will connect people, you know, that will create people who associate with these descriptors that, on the other hand, you know, are associated with the you know, with the concept of sustainability. So brands can actually create a jingle, you know.
And I've done it.
Yeah, and they do it all the time. You know, brands, they can create one jingle that represents, you know, that connects their identity with sustainability, for example. What I think technology and this kind of research can allow is that you don't need to create one jingle anymore. Because with the acceleration of knowledge and data, I can actually use these descriptors to create your jingle. You know?
Individualized.
Yeah, individualized jingles, you know. So the brand can preserve their brand identity, connected with these specific descriptors of sustainability, and through technology and digital interfaces, I can give your, you know, the jingle created directly to you, you know, to you, and to you. And I think this is an interesting part. And of course, I give the example from the perspective of sound, which is my field, but you can translate this to the five senses. So I think this is something that will eventually happen. You know, brands, are always looking towards, you know, a more individual connection with the customer, more human individual connection. So this kind of research can allow this opportunity. And finally, concerning a more, you know, long-term and vision, this is perhaps the main question that drives my research at the moment. You know, what is and what will be the role of the senses in this multi-sensory? Now we can imagine that eventually all the senses will be digitized and we'll have like a fully immersed multi-sensory digital reality. So what will be the role of the senses in this reality? Because I think that yes, we are all humans, but some humans, perhaps they want to be more than humans with all technology. So we are probably eventually going to see the arrival of these, you know, the science fiction cyborgs. I think they're going to be part of our society. So we also need to start talking to them as customers, you know. And what will happen also with fully intelligent
devices.
yeah, you know, maybe
I mean,
maybe they will also become consumers.
Alexa should have the sensors.
Alexa maybe will consume.
No, they need the sensors. They need to know when I walk in, is it me or is it somebody else?
Yes, yes.
I mean, my iPhone should know in what state I am.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? I mean, that would enhance any kind of action we are doing, any kind of follow-up, any kind of interaction. I mean, if I talk to, I have an agent who is called Pi. If I talk to the agent, he gets the sound of my voice. So he knows that I'm angry or that I'm not angry, but he also should smell me. I mean, you know, how we smell differently on those birds. Well, that will enhance the whole operation. And if the other people can sense it through their devices,
Yeah.
the interaction will be on a very different layer.
Yes. Definitely.
And it's not only individuals, it's also masses. I mean,
Tribes, communities, yeah.
when you're at a soccer game, yeah, what's going on?
And expanding this discussion, how do you feel, and it's an open question for all of you, for Osiris, and for also for the people here, how these topics relate with perhaps some kind of trend in humanity to have the experience of not expanding for a digital future, but back into the ancient experience of non-technology somehow. We are having a bill that passed through in Brazil close the last week or back, which prohibits the use of smartphones in schools. So this is less technology in schools because we don't know the effects of too much smartphones and technology on children in the future. So perhaps this could be a trend that we will have a place in the near future, not going forward with technology and social marketing and with organizations, and perhaps going back to less technological experiences in humanity. Do you think it's a kind of trend? Could be?
Well, to be honest, I think there is no comeback for this thing. Well, you see what I'm thinking just now on the resolution that the children cannot use the mobile at school.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, but during this, when they are at school. So
Yes.
I see, I can't imagine the world without, sometimes I think, oh, I'd like to come back and to stop all this, but I don't think it's possible. Yeah.
Let me put that on a larger scale. When was the last time technology got lost?
So always advances.
540 after Christ, when the Roman Empire collapsed. Roman Empire was overrun by Allemans and Germans. They had no technology. And cement technology disappeared, food technology disappeared, heating technology disappeared, all the advances disappeared at that time. And it took 1,000 years to come back. I mean, when was the cement invented? 1870, but the Roman had it 300 before Christ, and their buildings are still standing. I mean, just as one example. So we are living currently in a very difficult situation. And I discussed that yesterday with other guys. The BRICS will divide the world. Or let's put it the other way around. The Americans want to keep their strengths, and they know they have no strength anymore. And if these guys aren't getting crazy, the chances that we lose our technology are high. So, but we don't want that. I don't want that. So going back is no alternative. And I don't want that we get bombed like Gaza, right? Destroy a whole society and wipe it out, and then finally buy it up.
Clean it.
And then the Rivera.
Rivera. That's a
We don't want that. What we want is continuous human development. And of course, technology gives us progress. Technology has dangers, atomic. Yeah, we used atomic to destroy other people, but now we are using atomic power for energy production. Now we're going to use it for medical solutions. It is a dangerous technology. It's like any poison. It's the amount you take it. The same with technology. And probably it's good to take the smartphones away from the kids in school. Maybe. We have to test that. We have to analyze that. And we have various countries experimenting around that. So it's one, but there is no going back to technology. I mean, of course, it could happen. A nuclear war, then we go back for 1,000 years. That could happen. And I'm actually worried about that because we have some crazy guys around the world in charge of this kind of red button. But nevertheless, as from a scientific point of view, the need to move the application and the usage of technology forward, that is our job. I mean, we need to know when is freshness fresh. We need to know when is the sound calming or exciting. And if we know that, we can arrange our product offering, we can modify our behavior, our processes, our artificial robots. And I can actually imagine when you go in the metaverse that you smell the meadow which you have on the screen, or the mountains or whatever. Mountains smell different, stones smell different than grass. And when you're in a virtual world and you don't have the smell dimension, the dimension is missing. So I think that is probably the first application of that. You know? It's easy to produce. I mean, you know how to do it. I don't know how to do it, but I assume this is pretty soon on the market. Yeah, but there are many, many, many more applications, and of course, there's some critical ones, but there are also some life-saving ones and some life-enhancing ones. And our job is to see from our perspective what is possible. Of course, there are other people who have completely different perspectives. Yeah, they want to make money out of it, and just money out of it. Yeah, my personal perspective is actually to make the world and the life of the people better. And here it's a sensorial marketing instrument.
And I think the human factor is what we should always be watching. That might be a nice,
Put it in the foreground,
yeah,
not in the background.
yes,
It's not,
definitely.
it's not the profit we are making, it's the enhancement we're making. So that's my perspective, but there are other guys out.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Well, we're coming to the end of our conversation, but before we end up our talk, I would like to hear from you, all of you, just a brief glimpse on your interest in, currently very interested now, what's your future interest in the near future? What's your future interests in the near future from a research perspective, from an organizational perspective? I also have very interesting projects that we are getting in touch now. Osiris published too many articles this year, 25. We are also involved with fresh, just to analyze, fresh research and Professor Waldemar just assumed the book. What's your near future project? The 3 million question.
Well, that's a good question. Well, I like very much all this nutrition part of my work. Although I'm a food engineer, the nutritional aspects, I am very passionate with this. So I still carry on working on labeling, warning labeling, those things of high in sugar, high in everything. Using maybe other, I track you have already used, maybe using other tools. Also, we didn't mention here, but also there are some tools related to our body. So how our body express itself, like beat heart and things like this. So this is another aspect that maybe I will go to this direction as well. And olive oil. Olive oil is the chouchou de la maîtresse, I would say in French, because we approved a very big project that many people from Brazil are involved, and it's become a very important product for us. We are producing very good quality olive oil, and so I'm very much involved in olive oil with all the consumer aspects. Yeah, so my colleagues are doing all the plantation and everything till the processing, and I will look after the labeling related to olive oil and sensory evaluation and comparing foreign like Portuguese, Spanish, Italian olive oil with ours, because this is you must agree with me, but we Brazilian, we have the feeling that what comes from abroad is better. Yeah, and I want my hypothesis that I'm going to demystify this. So I'm going, after I explain what is a good olive oil, I think my Brazilians consumers that you take part in the study will say, oh yes, this is much better than a Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, or whatever. Because we use very fresh olive oil, although it's very expensive. So this is a big point. But I have a question for Professor Waldemar, because, well, Felipe, as you know, you are working on the insect things. You see, try to make people like insects. And would you suggest any strategy or anything to work in terms of marketing to make people more keen on trying insect foods, or at least after enjoy a bit more insect products made with insects? So I think this is also a point that you'd like to hear of a specialist, and you have 3 in front of me now.
Thank you very much. And I will get to this very quick on the insects, but I would like to go first to your olive oil project.
Okay.
I just did a small olive oil project in the buffer zone between South Cyprus and North Cyprus. Probably you know that Cyprus is the last country beside Korea divided, actually the last capital divided. And we have a buffer zone which is occupied by the UN, and sometimes it's 15 kilometers, 5 kilometers, sometimes it's only 2 meters. And in one area of the buffer zone, we have an olive garden. And that olive garden is now 10 years old, so the fruits are growing. But that area didn't have fertilizer for the last 50 years. So it's completely natural. And the company who produces the oil, they pick the oil in they pick the fruits in early stages, and they produce them within 20 minutes. And the liter of olive oil is sold for €1,000.
Wow.
1 liter. And they can't produce enough. So if you do your analysis, I'll ship you.
I will also do that.
I have an account number. No, it's really because, I mean, understanding the value and the quality of olive oil is a very important one. It's a huge market. It's very fluctuating. It's actually a speculative market. So there is a need for science to get into that, to make really clear. Is it justified? I mean, I get my oil from my farmer and he wants €10 for a liter. It's still expensive, right? But that's the one that's the one he won. When I buy it from Spain, I get it for €1 the liter. But nevertheless, the quality and the real factors are important. That's where the science comes in. And says, okay, this is contained out of this and this, and out of that, the consequences. So that would be my. The second question which you brought up on insects, I have lived in various cultures, Europe, America, Africa, Asia. And there are, of course, various cultural circumstances where insects are more accepted than other one. You go to Thailand and right in front of you and it's like they're very delicious. And in Germany, when they come to you, you say, no. But it's a cultural issue. So I think we have to work in that segment. It's a very clear segment on the cultural dimensions, also on the taste dimensions, and also on the sound. I mean, it's a very specific sound when you fry cockroaches.
You have to put terminal probably.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a need to clarify that, and there's a need to make it possible. But as we know from other product introductions, there is a specific procedure what helps to get products faster to the market and not so fast. And there is there's procedures which are used in other new products, in other food items. So, there's a need for benchmarking, and out of the benchmarking, you probably can develop for your specific, let's say, North Brazilian market or South Brazilian market, specific applications. And I think the cultural dimension is very crucial for them.
Yes, it was 1 million answer, Professor Zilt.
$1 million answer.
Now, Professor Felipe gave me also based on your future research.
Yes, so one of the things that I'm focusing right now is definitely using technology for accelerating my research. That's something that I'm very much focused on, different kinds of technologies. Because part of our research is still very crafted, and we want to really find ways to automatize it and accelerate the process, but also, focusing on these questions that really can help well-being to people, more informative choices, better choices. So I would like to focus my research on these big questions, peace, well-being, safeness, healthiness. These are the kind of sounds that I want to pursue right now. Totally human-oriented.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a connection between you and us.
Definitely.
If I can ask the participant, this was the first time that we were sitting, but it was very inspirational. So I would like to keep the vibe going. I drafted a small piece of paper which I uploaded on LinkedIn so you can see it. And we have the recording of that stuff, so what I would like to propose, that we come up with a joint paper for various
Discussions.
as an outcome of the integration of various concepts. I mean, we have food, we have sound, we have smell, we have
Food too.
fruit juices, and that would be great. So that would be my immediate wish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Valdemar.
We came across time, but I don't know whether we could expand a little bit. It's okay for everyone?
Someone
No
has any questions or comments?
Any questions?
One or two
Question from us.
questions from the audience online? Yeah, do you
Or
guys
any
have?
comments or something?
Are there questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, please.
Não, ninguém mandou
No,
nada.
but there are no questions.
oh.
No questions?
Okay, question from the audience. 3 seconds, please go. One.
Yes, the audience here, do you have?
We are astonished with all this insightful. It's by my heart. I learned it a lot. Thank you so much.
Okay, and I would say they can send mails to us and we can integrate that.
Yeah.
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Tchau,
Bye.
Rodrigo.
All of you to
Bye,
ESPM,
tchau,
please.
Luciana.
Tirar foto, please. Pessoal, eu queria muito agradecer a presença de todos. I wish to thank you all that came online. Thank you so much. And after all, I will share with you the link with the YouTube record. Okay? Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Okay? See you. A gente vai tirar uma foto. Então, vamos lá? Pode tirar uma foto. Tchau.
Another photo.
Yeah. Maybe here? Yeah.
Vocês têm que vir também, né?
É isso aí, eu tiro a foto.
Ficar com o celular.
Dá um.
Isso.
Eu nunca tenho perdido só e depois ele só manda.
Não, a gente tchau.
Não sei se está fazendo.
Aí a Rô fica aqui.
Oh, peraí, tá, pronto.
Tô
Vai, né?
trabalhando.
Peraí, tem que. Os homens ficaram todos lá e eu fiquei sozinha, né? Mulheres lá, homens não.
Valeu.
More time next week.
Tchau, pessoal. Até a próxima.
Sorry, he made me so far all of this.